Hey everybody, back here in the shop. It's a Friday. I'm going to get to work on my own stuff today. I'm hoping that I can share a little bit of rear suspension information here. I had one of the followers reach out and want to know about like how I set up springs and stuff like that. So I'm going to try to go through that quick today. I know I'm going to miss some stuff I'll try to add later on, but I'm going to, like I say, how I do say like a coil spring type car that I'm building to like race in the Sega group, you know, something that doesn't have coilovers on it. I'll do coilovers at a later date. If I haven't already, I may have, but coilovers make it a lot simpler. This is a little bit more difficult, but in the end, it's all just fabrication. So I'll try to talk you through some of this stuff, and maybe this will help, maybe it won't, but I'm going to try my best. Here goes nothing. Chevy 2's on the jig. I got it up in the air for display purposes. As you can see, I've got some jack stands on the floor. We've built these jack stands so they're adjustable in height, so I can level the jig on these stands, because I have to build some sort of support to hold the back end of the car up and the front end of the car up before I cut it apart any farther. I don't want the back end to fall off the car or the front end to fall off when I cut the middle out, because this thing's a mess in the middle. But there are some things in the rear suspension that are pretty cool, so I'm going to share them. I'm hoping I can share some of this information. I mean, I didn't build this car. I'm cutting it apart and throwing it all away. But like I say, like some of it was done okay, and then there's other parts that are just horrible. But I want you to see this. So it's got an AFCO rear spring. These are 13 by 5s, and you can see up in the top it's got an adjustable upper cup. I've never used those before, but they ain't too bad in this car. And of course, it's all just welded to a piece of 1/4-inch plate, which is like sort of nuts, but they use a cup that sits on top of the rear end housing right there, and then they use the jack to adjust the height up there. Okay, all that stuff's available from Speedway Motors. And I typically, like the last few cars I built, I've done spring behind the housing, but in this one I'm going to do spring over because I've not done that yet. But I'm going to show you some of my thoughts here, and as we go through I'll talk a little bit more about that. The only thing I changed it was this panhead bar. They had a real chintzy one in it, and I used the original bracketry, so I was concerned that the panhead would hit right there in the housing when I set it ride height. It seemed to be okay, but it was dangerous. I wanted to at least fix that. Then the more I looked at the car, the more I thought I needed to throw it all away. So I will reuse the housing. I'll walk you through some of that, how I do that stuff. But I mean, today Doug and I are going to rip this thing apart, cut all the guts out of it as we can, get ready to put it in the back room. So upper spring cups are adjustable, and they're welded on that plate. And then it's got spring over cups on the housing. What I did is I used, like on the last few I built, I used this bracket here, which put the spring behind the housing. It welded up onto the housing. Then I had an adjuster that I don't have here. It's like a big nut for this threaded rod. So this mounts like this with that adjuster nut there, and then this cup here sits on top. That way I could adjust the ride height up and down underneath the car versus doing it inside. Now I might, in this car here, use the same deal, but mount it so it's inside the car. I'll use a piece of 2x2 tubing and bore it that my adjuster nut will go in, and then this will stick up into the trunk of the car, and I can raise and lower the ride height. On these things I use a 13-inch spring. I'll show you this. This is an AFCO. There's the part number on this one. This is 150-pound springs. Usually I use like a 120 or 125s. That will all depend on the weight of your car. 13 inches long, but when they're at ride height, I try to get them at 10. I've made this tube right here, as you can see, that will set on the spring cup, top and bottom, and help me determine the height of the spring cup and everything else. When you're doing the setup and assembly work, this works real good. You can use a piece of PVC tubing, you know, something with a 3.5 or 4 inch diameter inside. Usually it's like 4-inch PVC. I know guys that do that. And then I have these washers here that I believe I got these from Speedway too, that I'll cut a piece of tubing that welds in there, and I can build my own custom seat cups. But you can buy those things pre-assembled. So you get through all that stuff, it makes life pretty easy. Then, like this car here, it has Competition Engineering 3-way adjustable shocks. And for the economy-minded feller, these aren't too bad. If you got like a lower horsepower car, you know, 400 horse or so, these shocks work pretty well. They're 3-way adjustable. They've not been installed right, but typically when you're installing these, I use an adjustable lower shock mount. I don't mount them solid. That way you can put a coilover style shock in it at a later date. You just got to make sure you leave room for everything. On this car we couldn't because I got the shocks mounted too close to the back brace. But I'm going to do that so at a later date, if I want to do something, you can mount a coil over its place. If you look at this, it's like 17 inches stretched out. That's extended. So when you're setting up a shock, you're always setting the rear end up at ride height. You've seen some of that on the jig before already. You take at least half of that distance. Say you got a 6 1/4 inch stroke shock, you subtract 3 1/8, and that will be the ride height of this type of shock, okay? And then when you're mounting the panhard and all that stuff, when it's at ride height, you want this to be parallel with the ground. You want it to be level. So as you can see, that bracket over there they put on it was way too short, so I'll cut that stuff off and redo it all. I'll probably move the bracket backwards onto the back brace so that it's not hitting on the top of the housing here. But I had another housing, but it's like 4 inches narrower, and I sort of like the width of this, so I'm gonna take it apart and redo it. Typically what I'll do is out here on the ends, if you can see it like in there, I'll cut the housing end back off and stick my alignment bar through it and just tack the end on. Then once I'm done welding my ladder bar brackets and all that stuff back on, I'll cut them loose and re-weld them, because the housing will move. If you buy a housing like this, you're having the housing pre-built and everything, buy it with a back brace and then be real careful when you're welding, like only weld 1/4 of the bracket at a time, let it cool off so you're not warping it any more than you have to, because they do move. You won't be able to help that. So a little bit about what's going in the shop. I got Chris Ford's truck done. These things here, like he wanted the factory front end remounted, Chinese grill and headlights and stuff. Got a longer front bumper. Turned out all really cool. Had to put a lot of thought in this one. It was a bit of a head scratcher, but I got it. Hoping he'll come this weekend, pick this truck up, so we're not getting any more metal dust on it than we have to. He's still got to wet sand it buff and do some painting. So then on Sean B's car, Jeff has got a lot done there. Finished welding the X in it. He started to put the flanges in to accept the floor. You can see them little angle pieces over there. We'll put that in, weld that in solid to catch the aluminum for the floor. And then we're going to make the transition pieces that go on the front. So it's all turning out really good. Happy with what's happening. Jeff's crushing it for me, so makes it nice when you don't have to hold somebody's hand. He's doing a fantastic job, so wanted everybody to see that. We're next thing is we mount the master cylinder to pedal, and that's the brake pedal. Then we locate the seat based on where the pedal is. So we're going to try to get the floors and those front floor transition pieces in, so that we can set him in the seat and get him comfortable. Then once the seat's mounted, then we mount the steering column. So it's sort of like a three-way process, but I'll try to walk some of y'all through that too. So that's what's going in here. The Willys, I've done a little bit on that. Like I say, I sort of had to knock off 2 days and work on this truck to get it done. So, but we're getting there. Everything's looking good. Why don't you guys watch and see what happens next week? I'll share more on the Chevy 2 on how we get that mounted up, and you can see it's not much of a jig, you know, it's just channel iron, but you can get it level. That's what you want, level side to side and level front to back. Gives you something to work with. So okay, thanks for watching, guys. See ya.